In what was a day marked to celebrate the most successful footy club since 1960, the Hawks trounced the Tigers to celebrate their 100 years of entry into the VFL AFL as the Hawks finally put the throat on an opponent and put them away after they tired. And let me just say quickly, the pre-game stuff was amazing. As someone that's been alive for 4 of Hawthorn's flags, I know there are a lot of you that are going to have seen more than that. Some of you that might have seen less than that. I don't know how you felt. Probably for those of you that are a little bit older, it would have felt even more awe-inspiring for you, which is incredible because it was emotional. Almost, I was ready to run through a brick wall as the fat dude that lives in Sale. My God, that was epic. Crawford did such an amazing job. Let's talk about what happened on the field. So first of all, I think it's fair to say that, again, not many people are going to be rushing to the replay for this one, I don't think, but there were plenty of pleasing things to say, but let's start with a little bit of a negative, because first quarters are still a problem. The game should have been over at quarter time, and I know in the grand scheme of things, it's not going to be that big of a deal. And yes, the Hawks have got Melbourne next week, who are in a little bit of form. The Meek v. Gawn matchup is going to feed families, let me tell you. But what I think is going to be so fascinating, I suppose, about how the Hawks transition out of this is that GWS had the wind, as we know, and then since then, it's just been an unmitigated disaster, the way that we're starting games, and not necessarily in ball movement, to be honest. I thought the transition movement was pretty good. The half-back rebounding handball game worked well enough. We just didn't want to take our chances. Jack Ginnivan had probably the best first quarter, or probably one of his top 3 quarters he's had this year, let alone probably top 5, top 10 for the club so far. Just couldn't put it on the scoreboard, unfortunately. Without a shadow of a doubt, though, the MVP of that first quarter was Tommy Barrass. And shout out to one particular peanut who did not want Tom Barrass at all. Be feeling pretty stupid right now. But let me just say this, Barrass dominated. He was awesome. And we love everything that TB37 brings to the table. He was magnificent. And don't worry, that other bloke at centre-half back did pretty nicely as well, just quietly. But going into quarter time, it was probably seemingly fan base that was just like, again, really? Don't let them in. What if they? And of course, the Tigers didn't go down to the what if they answer. They didn't have to go forth and say, well, we're going to scare the shit out of you a little bit. By halftime, the Hawks had 19 defensive half turnovers, and Richmond had kicked 1 goal, 2 out of it. That's not going to happen again. Now, there is a case to be made that the Hawks aren't going to make such lazy decisions against a better opponent. Now, of course, since the Port Adelaide game, we haven't played a superior opponent. Melbourne's forward half pressure has increased a little bit, so maybe we'll see it maybe exposed a little bit more next week. But there were times where you were almost wishing and hoping Richmond would get a goal so we could go back to the centre clearance, because that's where we were getting the rebound off the back of the square. Amon, Weddle, these guys were doing it so well, and we just couldn't do it. And it seemed contagious after a while, which kind of sucked, to be a little bit on. Again, I know it's nitpicky because of a big win, but the first half, in all honesty, was just a little, didn't enjoy it a whole lot. The last sort of negative here in sort of the first half as we transition into the positives, Harry Morrison, I feel like a lot of people are going to look at the stats and go, he was really good at holding the ball in the middle of the ground. I'll tell you what, it was mitigated by the fact that we kicked 2 goals in the final minute, and I'll talk about them in just a second, but that holding the ball in the middle of the ground, Harry, it wasn't good. But if there was a positive to come out of that, Josh Ward's last 2 minutes of that second quarter was unbelievable. The line-breaking kick to Newcomb, which set up that first goal. The 1-2 where he could have blazed away from 60. I don't know about you, but I don't trust Josh Ward to kick 60, and that's not a slight against him. That's just common sense. Lowered his eyes, found Nick Watson, and you went, that's it. That's what we want. Good boy, Josh. And absolutely good boy, Josh it was. The second quarter also brought a bit of biff into the game, and look, those tussles, they're going to get fined, which is dumb. Why are we come on. Seriously, why are we fining people for getting, it's tussles. Guys, right, we're not smacking each other in the head. We're not doing anything stupid. It's emotion, we got to keep some personality in the game. You got to keep some, in all honesty, I know this is a big word to use, you got to keep some hatred around. Now, it's temporary, it's part-time, it's on the field, I understand that. It'll break itself up reasonably quickly. The ball is king after all. But you got to keep that spark. If you want to call it hatred, you want to call it spark, passion, biff, tussle, whatever word that you want to use, we have to keep that in the game. Now, these two teams did a good job of it, but I can just imagine that there's going to be about $6,000 to $8,000 worth of fines to come out of this, which is a bit stupid. Now, I understand it's going to be, well, we don't want things to escalate and get worse, so hit them where it hurts. If you're earning $300,000, which is what the average, wage is in the AFL, and most of the players involved are going to be more than that, to be honest, or at least the big dogs are, is $1,000 really going to do much to them? Now, yeah, of course, obviously, if rookie or something maybe is on, say, like $100,000, 1% of your income, no matter how much you earn, 1% of your income is still going to be, a big part of it. I understand that. But just to use, say, Josh Battle, for example, who's reportedly on about $800,000, if he does get a fine of $1,000, that's 1/800th of his yearly salary. So, for example, if you earned $56,000 at, say, like a full-time job, 1/800th of is $70. Now, that's still, $70 for something that's not already available in your budget. I understand that is going to be a reasonable hit of coin, right? But again, that's for if you're on $56,000, not $800,000. So, it's not going to do anything. So what's the point of doing it anyway? That's kind of where I stand on this. That was a lot of math that we didn't really need to talk about. Anyway, on to the second half, and the third quarter genuinely belonged to Finn McGuinness, which was awesome. Finn playing well makes me happy. I like the fact he's adding more tools to the tool bag that aren't just tagging. He obviously didn't need to tag. Who are you going to tag from Richmond? Tagging Taranto. Sure, you're going to stop 30 disposals going straight up in the air. Cool, if that's what you want to do. Of course, that's not what we wanted to do. It's not what we wanted to do at any point in time. But Finn was awesome in that third quarter. I loved everything that I saw from him in that part of the game. He was really solid all round, to be honest. But that third quarter, he stuck out like a sore thumb. We mucked around with it a little bit. This really was the quarter, though, where the halfbacks really got involved. Your Weddles, your CJ, Impey, these guys who just dominated, let's be honest. Now, yeah, like I said, we did muck around with it a little bit, and I think that's just going to come with a lack of defensive pressure. It was kind of they switched off a little bit physically, we switched off a little bit mentally. Is it that big of a deal? Well, considering that we're going to be playing better teams post-bye, we'll have to wait and see. I feel like if the opponent is sharp and we're sharp, then that's going to bring out the best version of us. So that leaves me a lot more optimistic, I suppose, than maybe this game does. But like I said, in the second half, we just put the foot on the throat and just took the piss, to be honest. A couple of players that I want to give a shout out to before we sort of get to the MVP votes here. Jack Ginnivan played an awesome game. One of our half forwards nearly every game has 20 disposals and kicks a goal or two. That was Jack here. Yes, he didn't have the execution, but the fact that he stayed involved, it was relatively four-quarter performance. Massive shout out to him. Absolutely shout out to him. And the pencil, Henry Huswaite, my man, the long neck pencil. My God, he's good. The only thing that I want from the pencil is just kick it more, right? Now, when you're in and under and you've got to feed a handball out, of course, that's fine. I am not saying anything untoward there. Handball the ball out, Henry. But when you're in space, trust your field kicking, mate. Your kicking was superb. Just kick it, right? A 4-15 split at one stage it was. I don't think he had any more than that. I could be wrong, but the 4 kicks and 15 handballs just seems a little bit out of whack. And if I'm being honest, it's hard for me to justify bringing Nash in for him. And he can't play anywhere else. And I don't know if we could sit Connor on the pine, so I feel like whatever happens when Connor's back is going to make me feel yucky in my tum-tum. And fingers crossed Cam Mackenzie is back soon. Hard to say how the midfield is going to go because of the midfields that we've played. Even, Oliver had the mental health day off. Effectively, I don't mean that in a bad way. He didn't play against the Eagles because of his physical and mental health. So week off, I should have said there, not day off. So we'll see how he goes. But Petrarca, Oliver, Viney have still got to be respected in that way. They really do. But I think we can all acknowledge that, they're not their prime versions of themselves anymore. So maybe we can get away with another non-full midfield performance. But it's going to be really interesting to see how that midfield mix moves forward. I'm still not convinced Jimmy Warple is the way forward. I know there are people saying that the deal to Geelong is already done and all that crap. Fine. If that's what happens at the end of the year, that's cool. As long as he's wearing a Hawthorn jumper, I'm going to care about his performances in a Hawthorn jumper. And overall, it's still iffy for mine. It's still iffy, but Jai was elite. Lloyd v Nank kind of was a 0-all draw. It seemed. Would have loved for Lloyd to kick that goal. And of course, the biggest of shout-outs to Jack Gunston for kicking not only his 500th, but his 501st goal, which was a ripping set shot as well. Marbior Chol was fantastic, especially with his pressure. His field kicking out of the centre square. My God! But we can't sit here and shout out everyone. Let's get to the votes. Now, this was probably the hardest one to do. Picking a best on ground was relatively difficult. Now, for the full roundedness of his performance, I've actually gone with Jai Newcomb for the 5, which may be a surprise. I'm not particularly sure, but I just feel like the fact that he had the defensive side of his game maybe a little bit more in tune than CJ, Josh Battle, and Massimo D'Ambrosio did is why I gave him the nod there. Tom Barras is very unlucky to not get votes. He was so close. Jack Ginnivan unlucky to not get votes as well, but that is where we stand, guys. They're the votes for the season in its totality. A little bit of movement, which we don't mind in every which way, but that's where we stand. This video actually went longer than I thought it would, but I'm glad that I was able to get fully, notes down. I hope you enjoyed this style of the review. Another Hawthorn win, which we love. We're back in the 4. Love to see it. Brisbane Gold Coast tonight. If you want my tip ahead of time, I'm going Brisbane by 22 points. Josh Dunkley to win the Marcus Hashcroft medal. That's what I think. Let me know what you thought about the game itself. Comment below. Let me know. Like the video if you like the video. Subscribe if you're a Hawthorn fan. Subscribe if you're a fan of the videos. This is the only time of the week where I get to be completely biased and not really care about anything else, which is lovely for me. And I love the Hawks. Go you absolute superstars. The Hawks, 100-year celebration, 70-point win, just about. How good. Thanks for watching, guys. See you later.